Yo, what up, guys? We're on the clock. We're back with another week of 6 month madness. I am, as always, joined by my good buddy Julian. If you don't know who I am, figure it out. Um, so, we're just vibing. We've had a good week. It was a good week of college basketball for sure. I think this week will be a touch better in terms of some of the competition. We're starting to get closer to conference play. Um, some of the teams are starting to look to build up on their the conference schedule or non-conference schedule. Wrap it up here. There's some good games still. Yeah, but we'll get into those. We'll get into those. Don't wait. Don't worry. Just
Can,
wait.
can I just
You'll have
mention before we
yeah, for
before
sure.
we get into it, how good has the non-conference slate been this year, man?
Unbelievable. I
It's
mean, this is
it,
probably the best. This is probably the best year of college basketball I've had in recent memory, and maybe it's just because I'm paying attention probably more than ever. But I mean, there's been some good seasons in the past, but I don't think we've seen as competitive a start to the season, especially with a lot of the matchups that we've been blessed with so far this
there's
year.
been there's been a preposterous amount of top 25 matchups considering how early it is in the season.
For real. Yeah. I mean, I don't, I think a lot of them. I think a lot of it's just due to the fact a lot of these teams are interchanging in and out of the top 25, especially towards the bottom and in the middle. We're just seeing a lot of teams, enter the top 25 that a lot of people just weren't expecting to be relevant at the beginning of the year. And we'll talk about some of those today. You know what I mean? We're going to start it out. If you are new here, we start out every week by going through the top 25 in basketball or in college basketball. And one of the main reasons that we are inclined to do so now is because last week we started our own top 25. So, in respect to our rankings, we're going to go through it quick. Number one team in the country. I'm going to go through them pretty quick, so try to keep up. Number one, UConn at 11-0. Number two, Purdue at 10-0. Three, Virginia 8-0. Four, Houston 9-1. Five, Kansas 9-1. Six, Arkansas 9-1 as well. Seven, Arizona 8-1. Eight, Illinois 7-3. Nine, Virginia Tech at 10-1. 10, Alabama at 8-1. Duke at 11 at 10-2. Miami at 12 at 10-1. Our biggest riser of this week, climbing up from 26 last week. Indiana at 13 at 8-2, Utah at 14 at 8-2, Baylor at 15, falling quite a bit with some of their play recently, but still strong at 15 at 7-2. Kentucky 16 at 7-2 as well. We have another undefeated team, one of the lower ranked undefeated teams left in the country that we're keeping an eye on. UNLV at 10-0, Auburn 18 8-1, North Carolina 16 6-4, UCLA 20 8-2, Tennessee 21 9-1. The biggest discrepancy between us and the ESPN board is Tennessee is at 6 and they are at 21 on ours. Gonzaga at 22 at 7-3, Wisconsin roll badges at 8-2, Mississippi State Bulldogs undefeated at 9-0, and Iowa rounding out the top 25 at 7-3. Ah, wow. How are we feeling so far? What are some of the teams that you have been most pleased with?
I mean, it's hard not to say UConn.
Yeah, and
UConn has been nothing if not impressive. Um, if I were to have told you at the beginning of the season that there will be one undefeated team left in the SEC, I guarantee you nobody in their right minds would have said it's Mississippi State.
yeah, probably that's a no chance bet right there for sure.
Um, it's still shocking to me. I do
Yeah,
wanna we've had our debates about this, but I do want to give the Badgers credit because they are one of the better teams in the Big Ten. Um, we talk about them a lot because Caleb
we
has been
we
excited to
don't
talk
talk
about the
about them
Badgers,
that much.
but they're gonna be one of those classic Wisconsin teams.
Play good
Um,
defense, shoot the ball well once in a while, and win those games when you can. I mean,
yeah,
last 6 games for them, even though you don't think it's very impressive, a 1 point loss
I
to
don't.
Kansas, a 5 point win against USC, who will be a tournament team, a 3 point loss in
Mhm.
overtime to Wake Forest, who will be a borderline tournament team. A 3-point loss to Marquette, who I know will be a tournament team. A 5-point win versus a ranked Maryland at the time, top 10 Maryland, and a
Well, wait, 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 wait. Hold on.
3-point win versus Iowa.
Maryland are frauds. Can we get that out there,
I
please? Like
mean, we had Wisconsin ranked higher than them last week.
we did. I just want it to be known. Maryland quickly vaulted up to 13 and just as quickly in the ESPN top 25 vaulted closer to 25
Um,
after back-to-back losses.
Speaking of falling from grace, another team that's kind of reeling right now, as you put it. Creighton's down to 6-5. I guess a lot of people are saying after Maui they decided they didn't need to win anymore.
Sometimes winning's optional, man.
I mean, the biggest thing that I've just noticed is that they've had nights where one guy isn't going and it kind of drags down the whole starting five. They're a big team that's relying on their starters to carry and produce
Yeah.
night to night, and they need somebody. What's his name? They need Mason Miller or somebody to really step up. Somebody
Fred
off that.
Fred King had a good game the other night in the loss to A-State,
I really
but
want to see it to be Mike. I want it to be Mike Miller's son, though. You know what I mean? Like, I
yeah.
just want him to. I want him to crank it up a notch and turn it into a dog. Um, we kind of have to talk about Texas. Yeah, the whole Chris Beard
Yeah,
thing is very unfortunate. It's unfortunate to really hear anybody in the basketball world, you know, do something that's kind of um, that makes you a little uneasy, and you don't really know how to feel about it. A lot of times, you view these people very highly, and when you find out that they're just normal people and have their own problems, day to day, it can kind of be a waking or an unsettling type of feeling. I don't know. I just think that we obviously don't stand with domestic abuse or any sort of violence towards any loved ones, family members, and especially towards women. I think that that's something that we both agree on as people. It just kind of fits into our value system. Um, so it's unfortunate, um, but Texas is going to have to find a way to move on. It seems as if Chris Beard's probably unlikely to return this season or probably in the future. His kind of future in coaching is probably in question. Um, so, we
for
haven't
the
been that
record,
high. Talking back about, go ahead.
I do just want to clarify for those of you who are listening who don't know what happened. Um, was this on what, Sunday or
I
Monday?
don't, I
I
don't
think it
really
was
know if it matters when it was.
it was a couple of days ago. Chris Beard was arrested for domestic violence charges. He has been suspended by the University of Texas. As Caleb mentioned, it's pretty unlikely that he comes back this year. It's pretty unlikely that he returns to coaching anytime soon. He is likely facing some sort of jail time, if I had to guess. Um, and just a disclaimer, if you want to learn more about it, which I wouldn't recommend, I'm sure there's articles about it that you can look up. We obviously don't want to describe what happened or get into detail about what happened. So we'll give you the extent of,
We focus on basketball here.
yeah, he's been arrested, and basically, moral of the story, Texas is in a lot of trouble because he was carrying that program.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's still about the players, and you never want to take away from the talent that they have on that roster. But Texas is a team that me and you both haven't really been the biggest believers of this year. I just think that they have some inconsistencies and some major depth issues at most of their positions. So it's not surprising to see them losing. It's surprising to hear the unfortunate news, but another day, another dollar. You got to carry on. Obviously, we talked about Maryland kind of just collapsing after their undefeated start. I don't think they're going to be a team that we really talk about anytime soon, to be honest. So, is what it is. You put down here Kansas exposes Missouri. I'm assuming the exposing was a jab at my overrating of Missouri.
No, not at all. I don't believe that they are an overrated team. I think they're a good team, but they were
I
an
just think
undefeated team
I
who
think
was
Kansas is that good though. You
It
know what I
could
mean?
be, but they were a team that were relatively untested, and they failed their first test pretty miserably.
Yeah, they had a rough game, especially on the defensive end. I don't think it was an impressive performance by any means. But
No, and I think
they'll still have
that
some time to put it together.
well, I mean, the thing with Mizzou is a great offensive team, and they have the talent to be a good defensive team, which is weird why they aren't as good as they should be. Um, but against a team like Kansas, like if the shots aren't falling, Kansas is going to make you pay.
Yeah,
And that's what we
they
saw.
get too many easy looks at the basket. Um, you can't trade threes for twos, and Missouri relies a lot on their 3-point shooting, especially to start this year. Illinois has been pretty inconsistent. I don't think me and you are too terribly worried about them. I think that they have the depth and talent to kind of dominate the Big Ten, especially as we go into conference play. They've done their job. They've played against some tough teams, and they have some good losses to put on their resume. We just want to see them win going forward. I think that that is the biggest story there. Getting into some mid-major performers. What'd you say?
That was a Brad Underwood shout out.
You're an interesting guy.
For those of you who don't know, sorry, keep going.
Ben Shepherd for Belmont has we haven't talked about him in a bit, but he's been continuing to ball out. Put up 33 points against Middle Tennessee the other night. It was a really impressive performance, at least mostly from a scouting perspective. Some of his shot making, especially from deep, is unreal. He can really heat up from outside and kind of um, take teams completely out of the game, but kind of just hop to the next prospect, kind of hop around a little bit, at least on our list. Um, Teofali Leonard is on Middle Tennessee and went up against Ben Shepherd, and Middle Tennessee was able to scrape out a dub on the back of a lot of things that Teofali Leonard was doing, especially on the defensive end. He's a menace on the glass. He does a lot of the little things that impact winning, and it was enough to get them the dub. I'm pretty sure it went to overtime if I'm not mistaken, and good mid-major basketball being played across the country. And two guys that especially from a scouting perspective, that we want to highlight. Uh, Sorry, I'm not bored. I'm just tired.
It's
Jameer
we're both
Nelson.
exhausted.
Jameer Nelson Jr. If you are familiar with
Ooh,
that, if you're familiar with that name, he's getting it done for Delaware. He put up 30 points in his last game against Siena. I'm pretty sure that was last night, if I'm not mistaken. As you know, we always film these on Tuesdays. Um, and also, he's averaging 20 a game. So he's paying his family lineage, some respect and then putting up buckets. Definitely more of a scorer, where his father was definitely a dynamic playmaker and a long tenured point guard. Um, so just always good to point out. There's lots of we've talked about another NBA son previously in this section with Jamal Mashburn Jr., who is on one of these Mountain West teams that we're going to talk about. How they got three teams still that are undefeated in Utah State, New Mexico, and UNLV. Um, I, I'm
and
impressed.
that's a conference, and that's a conference where San Diego State is usually the team to run that conference.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a tough. There's a couple of conferences where it's tougher sledding than you would expect this year.
Yeah, the West Coast Conference is one that I'm sure comes to mind. Gonzaga normally runs the show there, and there's some healthy competition in that conference with Pepperdine and St. Mary's. I don't know if Pepperdine's in contention to really win it or do much damage tournament wise, but their team on any given night that can beat you with the talent that they have on their roster. Um,
Yeah.
Stocks on the rise. Normally you take care of this, but these are five of my guys. Um, we got Cam Jones. For Marquette, I talked about Marquette earlier, and kind of my confidence in them, and a lot of that confidence. And you could say it's a rational confidence, but a lot of that confidence is placed because of Cam Jones. Um, a 6'4" combo guard who takes care of the ball and gets buckets. I mean, there's not many things that a team needs more than just a healthy scoring option, and he provides that for Marquette. And I think when you have a guy that can score, and you have guys like Prosper who can impact the game at both ends, kind of be a two-way player, a gadget guy. And then you have a guy like Oso Ighodaro who presents a lot of different values as a combo five, as we call it. He the Marquette team could do damage. I mean, in the
Yeah, they're
tournament, even I could see them being a team that, because of Cam Jones, I mean, they beat Baylor. He cooked Keontae George. I mean,
yeah, they killed Baylor.
He ate Keontae George's lunch. I mean, he has really put on great performances against some of the best defensive guards in the country. I mean, he absolutely made a lot of one of people's favorite freshman guards. He made JJ Starlin look silly. I mean, he made him look like he didn't belong on the court with him. He battled with Chucky Hepburn. We may not respect Chucky Hepburn as instant draft guy, but in terms of college basketball, he's one of the best two-way point guards in college basketball. And they duked it out, and Chucky came out on top, but definitely not in terms of the scoring numbers because Cam lit him up for 20. So, I've been loving what I've seen from him and Marquette so far. Definitely somebody to keep an eye on as he creeps his way closer and closer to being in the draftable range on my board. Um, Trish Jackson Davis, a guy that we'll probably talk about at another point in another pod, more in depth. This is a guy that I feel is very underrated,
I'm
especially
with you.
in terms of the draft conversation, and even the player of the year conversation. I think he's definitely a guy that has to be getting looks right now as one of the most all-around impactful players in college basketball. He does a lot of the similar things that Oscar Tshiebwe does, but he provides a little bit more length, a little bit more athletic pop, um, and he can
I have a
shoot.
question
Yeah,
while we're on the Trace Jackson Davis subject.
I
Speaking of
was about
Naismith,
to get in. He also scored. He also had a triple double.
is he the favorite right now?
Trace, I think Zach Edey is probably the favorite.
Okay. I
I
just
think
had to
just
throw the question out there while we're on the subject of Trace.
based off the fact that Purdue is the number one team in the country, by ESPN boards, is the number two team on ours. There's conversations for Sonogo maybe if you really weight the winning that much. But I think Sonogo and UConn has a lot better of a all around roster than probably Purdue does. Don't sleep on
That you
Fletcher
guys
Lawyer.
step.
Don't sleep on Fletcher Lawyer, but I mean the big man duo of having Sonogo and Klingon. I mean that's the best front court in the country in my opinion.
Yeah,
It definitely very highly up there for UConn. Um, yeah, I mean we've talked about TJD, as I call him, ample for now, and we'll talk about him in another future pod, I'm sure, probably on my accord. Uh, Cam Whitmore, he made his debut. I can't remember if we talked about it last week. I feel like we
we
might
did.
have. Um,
We mentioned it.
yeah, his
I
debut was last week. He's continued to play well. Had his first 20-point game this week.
I would like to mention something notable about Cam Whitmore being back.
Okay.
Nova is 3-0. 3-0
Yep.
in games where Cam Whitmore sees the floor.
Yep. I mean,
Just throwing that out there.
if that doesn't tell you anything, I mean, two of the games he was coming off the bench. So, um, Jalen Clark, I mean, he's a guy that I had tweeted about last week as a guy I really wanted to see get more volume, and you know, he answered the call. He had a 24-point game against Denver. That may not be a notable opponent, but he was more aggressive and still efficient. 10 for 13 from the field, 2 for 4 from three. Um, just a really good player. I think that
He's
he's
a
gonna
good
be.
player.
I think that he's gonna be a guy that might creep into first round conversations by the end of the season, just because of his efficiency and some of the tools that are there. Guys that play like him, kind of out of that. The most common comparison nowadays is OG Anunoby because it's just the easiest one for a 3-and-D wing with some signs of ball skills in any way. You know what I mean? Like can put the ball on the floor a little bit, and he's OG Anunoby. If he's 6'6" to 6'8" and can shoot the
Can
ball.
he take more than one dribble? He's OG
Yeah,
Anunoby.
yeah. I mean, I think that there's something there. I don't think OGA is not the right comp. There's something else there, I'm
No.
sure. I hate comping prospects, but yeah. I mean, he's just really impressive. Continues to really impress me. When I tweet out stuff like that, like it may seem like I'm expecting it to happen, but I rarely am. I'm always kind of like, I always am thinking in the back of my head, like, am I just cursing the player? Am I me talking about them? It's not going to impact anything that goes on. But when you see things that you ask for, it's hard not to be happy and smile a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
Taylor Hendricks is a guy that a lot of people are talking about from UCF. I know that you haven't watched much. I've watched not enough to say that I could give a full evaluation on him. But 6'8" freshman forward, with some 3-and-D upsides because of his mobility, and some of the shooting signs that he has. He's shooting around 50% from three so far to start the year. So you don't hate that. I don't know if the shooting will last throughout the whole season. I think that's definitely the more doubtable part of the evaluation. I think the athleticism, the physical tools are all there. Um, he should be an interesting player. I think he's one that you'll like.
Yeah, I've seen him as high as 10 on people's boards, which is
I have him.
something.
I have him in the late 20s. I have him in the late 20s, and I only really took him into account as a prospect this last week. He was actually a guy that we took off our boards because I thought he wasn't getting enough playing time, but turns out, he definitely is getting enough playing time. And I just needed to do better scouting. Sometimes you gotta live and learn with mistakes, and just look to quickly correct them and move on. So, my favorite part of the podcast every week, the women's game of the week, and this one was a doozy. I actually watched a good chunk of this one. Um, it wasn't it it was a closer and more intense game than the score portrays it. I decided to focus on the state of Iowa rivalry, Iowa versus Iowa State. Iowa was able to knock off Iowa State. Both those teams were ranked at the time, and it was my first time tuning in, and this is the main reason why I watched a bit of this game. Um, the nation's leading scorer, Caitlin Clark, she's scoring around 28 a game. And she had 19 against Iowa State, and she's a shooter. Like, I mean, I guarantee her entire life in high school, AAU, whatever level of basketball she heard, when she stepped on the court, at a minute, the first thing the coach was telling him, shooter, he's a shooter, she is a shooter. Like, I mean, she can absolutely spray it from deep. I love it. I think she's a great basketball player. I wouldn't be surprised if she's a pretty high pick in the NCAA draft, or the WNBA draft when she comes out of school. So with that being said, we're adding in a little bit to the show. This isn't a new segment or anything, but we're just adding a little wrinkle to it to keep a little bit of engagement and continuity going throughout the weeks, because we are going to be here for probably 20 weeks, 30 weeks. So
Well, we got 4 months left.
we gotta keep it fresh. 28 weeks left. We
Four more
got
months of madness, bro.
Yeah, we gotta keep it fresh. So I decided it'd be a fun thing if me and Julian tracked our predictions throughout the whole season and really test you kind of our mettle as you know experts in college basketball. Um, did I have anything else um funny that I wanted to say before we did this? No, I don't. It's surprising. Um, all right. So our men's game of the week. Um, I'm gonna kind of go through these, and I'm gonna get your prediction. I'll give mine because I already have mine down. Um, so UC number R. By the way, these are our ranks, and our ranks go to 32. So if you hear a rank that sounds weird or anything like that, it's not based off of ESPN because those ranks are garbage. Um, we got on the 14th, which is tomorrow. We have number 20 UCLA versus Maryland. This kind of at Maryland is Maryland's kind of redemption chance at some of their woes in their last couple of games. Who do you got in this one, Julian?
I I just don't believe in Maryland, man. I have Maryland
Yeah,
hoodie sitting right over there, but I have to go with UCLA on this one. I'm sorry.
I went with UCLA as well. Um, on the 17th, these next 5 games are all from the 17th. By the way, I didn't say we're picking 5 games that are between major opponents. So that'll be any uh ranked matchups, so two ranked teams going against each other, or a highly ranked team playing against a team with a good prospect. As well as one sleeper game, which would be one that either me or you picked off the schedule and said that we wanted to do. This week I chose a game, so next week you can choose a game. Um, the 17th, we have our ranking again. I'm just going to repeat it for the last time. Number 13, Indiana versus number 5, Kansas. Julian, who do you have?
This one's tough. This one's really tough. I don't think that Indiana has an answer. Sorry, that Kansas has an answer for Trace. And
Hmm.
so I'm going to take Indiana.
So I picked Kansas because I thought that Indiana doesn't have an answer for the wings of Kansas.
I could see that's the debate as well. But I think that because they're wings and they're going to be the level of shot difficulty, I think is different. I think Trace can dominate this game.
He could, and I mean, I love Trace, and I honestly hope he does, and I hope that this is a game that solidifies some of the things I've been saying about him. If he needed any more solidification after that triple double, he'll have a chance to do it here. I picked Kansas though for the reasons, like I said, Jalen Wilson, Grady Dick, and Kevin McCullough are better than any of the wings on Indiana. And you could make an argument that if you combined maybe two of the players that India has at wings, like put them literally together, like make like a superhuman, they still probably won't be able to stop Grady Dick, Jalen Wilson, or Kevin McCullough.
It's valid.
So with that being said, on the 17th as well, we have number 10 Alabama versus number 32 Gonzaga. Yes, number 32 Gonzaga.
For the people who don't know, we go up to 32 in our rankings.
Yes, it's half the teams that will go into the tournament. By the end of the year, we'll be doing rankings of 64 teams. So it is what it is.
I'm gonna take Bama. They did just beat the best team. I mean, they did just beat my title favorite, the Houston Cougars. And we all, uh, for those of you that have listened to our podcast at all, you would know where me and Caleb stand on Gonzaga. Um, I'm taking Houston.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm taking Alabama.
you could go back a couple months and pretty much get our take on what would happen this game. Um, Also on the 17th, there's a big one. There's a biggie. Our rankings again, mind you, and even by ESPN rankings, is a top 5 matchup. Number 4 Houston versus number 3 Virginia.
Give me Houston.
I have Houston as well. I think Virginia is great and they do a lot of great things defensively. But I think Houston is just as good defensively, if not a bit better.
Yeah,
And they have more the star factor. And I hate to pick teams just based off the fact that they have more notable players and prospects, but I'm going to do it anyway. Um,
I I just don't think they'll be able to contend with the athleticism and the tenacity of Houston.
yeah, I mean, no arguments here. Um, Also on the 17th, all these are on Saturday. Really, really crazy day of basketball. Um, we have number 21 Tennessee versus number 7 Arizona.
And I swear to God, bro, Tennessee, I doubt literally every week, and they somehow seem to win games. I cannot pick Tennessee though. I just can't. I know they're somehow gonna win this game, and it's gonna bother me when they do. But I have to pick Arizona. I think they're just so much better.
I'm gonna pick Tennessee just to play devil's advocate. I think that there's a chance. I think there's a good chance Arizona wins this game. Um, but for some reason, I think Tennessee um, is starting to find the rhythm. They're playing really good defensively. And when I think about it off the top of my head, and Tubelis has really been the main guy. Paul Larson hasn't really turned out to be the type of player that a lot of people thought he was going to take that leap and to become in. Um, I think Tubelis is great. I just don't know if he's going to be able to. I think Tennessee is a much better team as a whole than Arizona is.
Yeah, I do think they're gonna have trouble with Omar Ballo just because of how big and physical he is. Um,
True.
but I think
I'm taking Arizona. I
I'm convinced you.
I just it's
I
not
mean,
even
how is
Omar
Tennessee
Ballo.
gonna
I
stop
think it's
us?
yeah, I mean it's the Omar Ball point is fair. It's not necessarily the deciding factor, but I think I just if I'm gonna play devil's advocate, I'd rather do it on a different pick than this one. Um,
I think
you
my
know,
Indiana Kansas was a devil's advocate pick.
fair enough. I mean, you picked Indiana before I even said I picked Kansas, but
Yeah,
you're probably assuming that I was gonna pick Kansas anyway. Um,
yeah.
Now our sleeper game, you know, I hate to bring up Missouri all the time, but number 22 Missouri versus UCF.
See, I don't feel like we talk about Missouri that much.
Fair enough. Just get on with it, Julian.
I'm taking Mizzou. I don't think that Mizzou is a bad team by any sense. I would love to see Isaiah Mosley actually play, but
Yeah, it'd be a
I
really
really
good
like
thing.
Kobe Brown. I really like Kobe Brown a lot, and Demoy
He's all
Hodge is. Hmm?
keep going.
And
You're
Demoy
drinking
Hodge,
my Kool-Aid right now.
Demoy Hodge. You know I've been on the Demoy Hodge train when I started
Yeah.
watching him play. I
Yeah,
was,
I
I
mean,
was, I got convinced. I don't know.
no.
This UCF team's okay. Like,
They have Taylor Hendricks, that's why I put it in there because he's been
yeah,
talked about so much lately. I mean, if you're not on draft Twitter, you wouldn't know, but oh my gosh, obnoxious. Um,
yeah, he's creeping up.
okay, so then we got three women's games. We're gonna pick these. Why not track them? You know what I mean? Why not? It's more fun when we show quality, and it's more fun to have more games to pick and criticize each other over things that we miss. So, um, kind of doing this on the fly for me at least. I didn't really look into any of these games. Um, on the 17th as well, big basketball day, obviously, as I mentioned before. We have number 21 Arkansas versus number 16 Creighton. I don't know
Give me
anything
Arkansas.
about I don't know anything about these teams.
I don't either, but give
I
me
know
Arkansas.
Creighton's been kind of cruising lately, so I'll probably take them. Um,
Creighton beat Arkansas in the men's. Arkansas is going to be Creighton in the women's.
okay, fair enough. I'm
Not
gonna
much.
not ride with that because that seems like illogic. I'm just trying to think about who I see win more, or at least who I see talked about more in terms of notable players. And I know Creighton's got a couple girls that are getting it done. 12-18, so on that Sunday, finally, some different basketball days. Um, we have number 5 Notre Dame taking on number 6 Virginia Tech. A very good matchup.
Give me Notre Dame. Go Irish.
I think I'm gonna take Notre Dame as well. Virginia Tech's been clearly playing good basketball on both sides of the men's and women's landscape. Yeah,
Yeah.
good stuff for them. I'm happy for VTech. They need that type of confidence boost as a program. Um, 12-18 as well. We have number 20 Arizona taking on number 18 Baylor.
No, they're not quite the same program that they were in their heyday in the early 2010s. But I'm still going to take Baylor, just on principle.
I think I'm gonna take Arizona just because I don't like principles. I'm not a fan of like going with the status quo. If you don't know
Baylor
anything
Baylor
about me,
women actually was the first ever college game I've ever been to.
wait, let me get those picks again. So you picked, um,
I picked Arkansas, Notre Dame, and Baylor.
okay, cool. Well, we'll find out if that actually works out. We'll fill you guys in. Kind of a new little segment. We'll fill you guys in on our picks and how we're doing throughout the season. We'll have a little record there every week. We'll do 9 games. So obviously our record will go up by 9 games every week, and we'll kind of just keep track. A little fun little thing I thought of. I'm so fun.
I'm excited to start off 9-0.
Yeah, for sure. Top prospect matchups. While we're kind of wrapping up here, if you are in on the draft community, these are some games to watch. Armand Franklin, a defensive prospect, takes on another more defensive prospect than offense. But Jarace Walker, and it'll be kind of interesting to see if they guard each other, honestly, because both are kind of playing the 4. Armand can kind of slide down to the 5, but both very, very skilled and relentless defenders for sure. Both guys have great footwork, know how to move, can step out on the perimeter and defend guards on the switches and the pick and rolls. So, a couple interesting players. Armand definitely doesn't have the size that Jarace does, but at 6'4", he plays phenomenal defense for a wing. Brandon Miller versus Julian Strother. I couldn't really give a rat's behind about this one. Julian Strother's really let me down this year, but it'll be good to see Brandon Miller versus him. Kind of put in perspective how good Brandon Miller really is. In case we haven't figured it out yet. He's been pretty solid when he's shooting the ball well. So we'll see how he shoots against Gonzaga. And one thing that I think that we should mention that we're looking for from Brandon Miller is him to have a really good game where he doesn't shoot well. I think that would be a really really healthy sign for his stock as a prospect. I just think when you juxtapose him and Gigi Jackson against each other, kind of referring them as similar players where they're kind of bigger positionally size. Gigi for the 4 at 6'10", Brandon Miller for the 3 at 6'7", 6'8". Both guys have that positional size, skill on the perimeter, and a smooth jumper. I just think that we've seen from Gigi so far this season is the ability to score around the basket because of his size and just his pure dexterity and length around the hoop. Like, he has some real skill. I just don't think we've seen the same thing out of Brandon Miller. Not that I don't doubt that it's there. I want to see some more of that mid-range creation that I saw when he was a high schooler. Some other things and nuances to his game. And probably if you had told me that Jalen Slauson and Terquavion Smith were playing each other at any point in the season, I would have told you this is the best basketball season ever. And it's looking like it's shaping up to be that way. At least for us. At least for us.
Before we leave, shout out 2 Pointers Podcast, who was going to be at that game.
Yeah. Shout out Trevor. Big ups for the draft community. We're running out of time, so we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys. Let the madness continue, and we're off the clock.